So, sir, thanks for joining us today on Leadership Log, which is a podcast for the Air Force Lifecycle Management Center community on topics of interest. And the topic of interest today is learning about the Small Arms Program Office at Robins Air Force Base. So, sir, if you could introduce yourself and give us a little bit of your career background.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. Thank you again for having us on this program. This is great. We here at the Small Arms Program Office do a lot. I recently took over this team about a year and a half ago. I'm a retired Air Force guy. I spent my career in aircraft armament. So guns, bombs, missiles was kind of my bailiwick. So it was a natural transition for me to come up here to Robins Air Force Base in the Armament Sustainment Division and work on that team. And back in 2011, I made that transition, retired, and I went to work for the Special Operations Forces strike team here on the base, working the AC-130 gunships primarily. So I worked that as a contractor for about 5 years, and then successfully made the transition into government service. Worked for about 3 years in the bomb racks team, and about 2 years ago, moved over to Small Arms. So our team is quite diverse. We've got a lot of expertise on our team. It's a relatively small team. It consists of only 4 government persons. We've got 2 engineers, an equipment specialist, and myself as the team lead. But we do have a very, very important cadre of contractor advisory and assistant services personnel that work with our team. And for the most part, our item management and our equipment specialist forces are working there. They give us feedback on supply chain management issues and tech data development and any kind of technical issues that we get along the way. And of course, we have extended team members in our finance department. Our contracting team is very, very helpful to us. And we spend a lot of time working with our external stakeholders, such as the Army and the Navy, our brethren down in Texas for the Security Forces Center. We have a contingent that works in the gunsmith shop, what is now called the US Air Force Small Arms Depot. So that team does most of our depot repairs. Some of our machine guns and stuff are repaired out at Anniston by the Army. And we even sometimes can reach down to the depot repair at Albany here in Georgia as well. So we reach out, get a lot of external stakeholders in the process. We work hand in glove a lot with the Army for all small arms. They're by regulation the lead service for buying all small arms and light weapons. That's for standardization purposes. So all DoD forces are using the same thing. So we work with them hand in glove.
Okay. So help us understand what the Small Arms Office does. So you said it's a small team, but you have a huge impact in terms of it. You control all the small arms in the Air Force, and that impacts every airman in the Air Force. So so talk to us about some of the items that you manage, some of the programs, that kind of thing.
Okay, yeah, we do a lot of work for the sustainment piece. A lot of our stuff is going through depot repairs. We track and manage all the issuance and the retrograde process for repair actions going to our depots. And of course, they go to those different depot facilities based on their expertise. We work mostly with our gunsmith shop, the Small Arms Depot down in Texas. Mr. Rich Shelton and company down there do a great job on all our M4s, all our handguns and our honor guard weapons. Those all go through that facility down there. A lot of our machine gun work goes out to Anniston. So we do that. We also do procurement of new equipment for the forces. So if a weapon system is being phased out and the Army and the Air Force have made the determination to adopt a new weapon, we'll partner with the Army and we'll go out and do the acquisition piece to that. We'll help out with all the market research, the legal reviews, the non-nuke munition safety boards to make sure it's safe to have all Air Force users use. We'll do all that dotting of the I's and crossing of the T's that make sure the acquisition is done according to the federal acquisition regulation. So, but we partner with a lot of people for that. And of course the financing piece is done through the congressional palming process, and we manage those inputs. We plan out all those acquisitions throughout the fiscal year defense plan.
Mhm. So now, what weapons do you manage? You manage handguns, rifles, small machine gun. What systems in particular do you manage?
Well, we manage everything from the smallest we have is a 22 caliber used for the shooting teams. That's a largely forgotten about mission set that we support. It's largely going away because the Air Force no longer buys weapons for the shooting teams. They're personally owned, but we do
Okay.
try to transition those through our gunsmith shop for repairs if necessary. Of course, we do all the 9mm sidearms that all our security forces carry. We recently did a contract for the M18 with Sig Sauer through the Army. That will replace all the old Beretta M9s for sidearms. There's various agencies like our Office of Special Investigations. They do an M11 Sig Sauer. There's actually an effort underway right now to transition them to a different weapon as well. So those sidearms are being procured and moved. There's even some honor guard weapons that still carry 38 caliber revolvers that are still in our inventory. We have M1s, 1903s, all in honor guard service. There's M14s in honor guard service. We do, of course, the M4 series of weapons. There's 12 different varieties of that are out in the field right now. We even have one that's a collapsible firearm that's called the aircrew self-defense weapon that goes in the ejection seat of our fighter aircraft for downed aircrew members. We do shotguns. Right now we're transitioning from Remingtons. Remington a few years ago declared bankruptcy and then no longer supports their weapons. So we're having to transition away from that platform as well. We do, of course, our bigger weapons for our long guns. We're buying the squad designated marksman rifle for our folks that need extended range capability. We of course do the M249 machine gun, the M240 machine gun. We even have an M107 50 caliber rifle in our inventory. We do Mark 19 grenade launcher machine guns, M320 grenade launchers that mount underneath the M4s or can be fired individually. And we also manage the optics that go on those devices. So all the sighting and targeting and all that equipment is stuff that we manage as well.
Mhm. And in numbers of pieces, I mean, I know with the 9mm anyway. I mean, there's got to be several thousand. I mean, tens of thousands of those. I mean, you're talking a lot
Yes.
of pieces of equipment.
Yes, there's almost 900,000 pieces of equipment out in the field at this time. So yeah, quite a few.
And you got four people on your team.
Well, 4 government folks, but I can't
Okay.
overemphasize that the contractors in our team they're just so above board. It's not even funny. They are stellar. We couldn't do it without our contract support. So there's 4 government people, but that contract team, the extended team is roughly 15 people strong, to include our contractors. We even have a depot planner on our team, and there's a contract financial manager on our team. So we have a lot of support that we rely on from the contracting side of the house.
And so again, when we talk about impact, I mean, in terms of airmen, if you've ever encountered, a requirement to fire for a deployment, or if you carry a weapon, or if you've served on honor guard duty, or any of those kinds of things, they've been a benefit to your services.
That's a very true statement. We do serve a very large community. Every member of the Air Force, Air National Guard, Air Reserve, they all use our equipment, every single one of them.
So the people that you have, you said you had 4 government people. What are your skill sets? What particular skills are you guys program managers primarily, or?
I'm actually a logistics manager by trade. Program manager would be a different job series, but related. Logistics managers they're kind of jack of all trades and master of all. So I try to do that. We try to manage the team as if we were program managers, but I'm yielding the power that is delegated to me by our division chief, Mr. Brian Hudson. So he's the one that delegates me his authority to manage this team, and all acquisition decisions go through him as the milestone decision authority.
So what are some things that that you guys worked on in the recent past that are out in the field now that people might know? What are
Well,
some systems?
it's interesting. Of course, the Sig Sauer M18 is our big fielding effort right at the moment, of course, to replace all the aging M9s that are out there. We're approximately about 38,000 weapons into that process. So we still got about 30 more thousand to go to get those fully fielded. We're doing the squad designated marksman rifle that's being fielded as we speak. It's currently going through a legal review process. And we're also trying to get the special tooling and gauging in place in all the 200 combat arms units that will be managing these weapons and maintaining them out in the field. We've recently done a subcompact weapon called the APC-9K. That's a replacement for the old MP5 weapons that are out in the field. Those are done for dignitary protection details, things like that. So those are being fielded as we speak. We recently did a contract for 50,000 1-to-6 variable optics. That's also a Sig Sauer out in Oregon. So those are being fielded as we speak as well.
Okay. So when you replace the 9mm, do you have to swap out all the ammo as well, or is it just the weapon?
There is a current effort to transition some ammunition use. The M18 is already qualified with the latest rounds with the current pressures. That's the 1152 rounds and 1153s is the designation for those, and they've already been qualified and approved for use with those rounds.
Okay, and I guess that makes the resupply a lot, or the transition a lot easier to manage than if you were trying to switch out to make sure that the weapons and the ammunition all got there at the same time.
Correct. That's part of the acquisition process, that we would make sure that anything that we procure is qualified with the ammunition that's going to be fired through it. Any of those tests would be coordinated well before we ever field to an airman.
Okay. What about holsters and other equipment like that? Do you have to procure new stuff for that for the new handgun as well?
Most of the accessory items are managed by other teams. We don't manage holsters. We do sometimes in the case of our general officer weapons. We facilitate questions from the field as to which holster goes with the weapon, but we don't get in the business of managing those incidentals and accessory items. For the most part, they're usually managed by DLA. So those are contracts that the Defense Logistics Agency will put together and replenish as needed.
Okay. Now you said earlier that the Army has the primary lead for like these acquisitions, and did they run the acquisition on the 6 hour, or did you guys have some input into that? Or
interesting story on that. We call that the modular handgun system. So the Army has predominantly adopted the M17 variant, which is a larger version of the same weapon. The M18 is the smaller compact version. The Air Force actually started the MHS program many years ago, but as soon as it became known that that was a joint requirement and not service unique, it became Army led at that point, and they drove the acquisition from there. And of course, it's much larger than just Air Force. The Army, the Navy, and the Air Force all use the M18 and M17 series of weapons.
Okay, all right. So the Air Force version is slightly different. What's the differences with it?
The difference in M18 and M17 is just a matter of size. The Sig Sauer is a modular handgun, where the serialized piece of that is just the frame internally, and you can swap out grip frames and slide assemblies and create different sized weapons in the end, but it's still the same serialized piece. So
Okay.
that's what gives it the flexibility and makes it modular for different uses.
Right. So what are some other things coming down the pike that you see in the future?
Well, we've got our eye on next gen carbines and squad weapons that the Army is fleshing out as we speak. They're trying to move on to bigger technologies that are safer and reach out and have more energy upon impact than our current fielded weapons. It entails a ammunition change as well. That'll be 6.8 millimeter. So those rounds are coming on board. So we're keeping an eye on that. That's still years down the road, if any, for Air Force adoption. So we're watching that. There's always talk about doing suppressors things like that for our fielded units. So we're keeping an eye on that one. We've got a lot of older weapons in the field in the form of the old M16s that we're phasing out, putting M4s in their place. So there's new weapon systems coming on board all the time, and we try to stay abreast of those by, attending vendor demonstration days and shows. Part of the team just got back from the SHOT Show, the Shooting, Hunting, and Outdoor Trade Show in Las Vegas. We went to that. It was the first time they turned that back on since the whole COVID thing, but we had a good time out there, and lots and lots of products out there. There's so many commercial variants of weapons and optics and laser range finders and all that, it's hard to stay abreast of that, but we try to keep up to the latest technology. From an acquisitions perspective, we cannot keep up with industry. If we were to change that, it's just the DoD is too big to just change that, overnight. But industry does a great job of supporting us. There's a lot of new technology coming down the pike, and we try to take advantage of that whenever we can.
So that kind of brings us to the end of our time. But before we close, I just want to see, is there anything that you'd like to add or anything that I forgot to ask you about?
No, that's a great rundown. I mean, I can't overemphasize, this is a great team we've got here. We interface with our Army brethren. We've got a great extended team here in the Air Force, especially our contracting team, our ANAS advisory and assistance services folks. We reach out to our finance folks a lot. That's a never-ending deal. And our security forces brethren down there in Texas, and especially our gunsmith shop down there, they do a great job for us. So we couldn't do it just with our government team. It has to be farmed out, and we have to have that extended team members to make it work.
Yeah. So, sir, thanks for joining us today on Leadership Log and helping us understand better your program office and how you impact the Air Force every day.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.